Hello, everyone. We welcome you back to another episode of Marriages of the Kingdom with Adrian and Nicole. And we are coming to you from WYTV7, Christian Broadcasters Network out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are happy that you have joined us again on today. Before we get started, we would like to mention to you that upcoming is Giving Tuesday. That is November the 27th. And we do invite you to give, as we are a nonprofit organization. If your family and your marriage has been blessed by this ministry or any of our broadcasters on WYTV7, please give by going to our website, which is WYTV7.org, and you can click on the donate button. And you don't have to wait till November 27th to give. You can give 24/7. So we do appreciate you and the donations that you give to our broadcast. And so for today, we want to discuss and go back into part 2 of reigniting the flames in your marriage if your marriage has become stagnant. We want to go back into reigniting the flames. And this episode is something that is really needed in marriages because many times in marriage, we assume that the marriage is going to flourish and be okay by itself, but that's not the truth. We have to be intentional regarding our marriages daily. We cannot take a break from our marriage. We have to be intentional daily, and we have to put the work into our marriages. Because if we don't, they're going to become stale and they will get boring very quickly. And so today we want to talk about some different ways that you can rejuvenate your marriage on today. And one of the things, coming back into this episode with part 2, we want to pick up right where we left off. And one of the things that you can do is to, for your spouse, do something different. Bring something home from your spouse. When you get off from work or when you're coming in from wherever you're coming from, bring something home from your spouse. It can be from anywhere. It doesn't have to be something big or extravagant or expensive. For me, when my husband comes home from work, sometimes he will bring me flowers. I love flowers. That really blesses my soul to get flowers. For myself, I will, if I'm doing errands or running errands, if I'm at a store and I'll think about something that he likes, and I'll stop and get it. There's this restaurant that makes cakes. He loves sugar. He loves desserts. He loves anything that is sweet. So for a special treat for him, it blesses him, I will stop and get him a couple slices of cake. You know, it's not big things that you have to do. The point is you're letting your spouse know that you're thinking about them. And that's so very important. Another thing that you can do is prepare a meal for your spouse. That's a good thing. Now, for those people that cook, and you cook all the time, those wives or husbands, in some cases, that cook all the time, okay, you're kind of used to it, but it really ignites something in your spouse if you're one of the spouses that rarely cook or don't cook at all. And so when you go out of your way and have a meal prepared for your spouse, it may not taste the best if you don't cook all the time, but they're not going to be necessarily concerned about that. They're going to be excited about the fact that you put forth the effort to do something out of the norm that you would normally do. And so that's a great way to revive your marriage, is to do something that you wouldn't normally do for your spouse.
And especially even with that, even if one of the spouses doesn't know how to cook, even taking a small cooking class or taking some notes from, I don't know, a family member or someone at your church or your friends, someone you're close to, and just prepare not maybe a huge extravagant meal, but maybe 1 or 2 dishes, and just do that. Start with that. I'm sure that the person who does all the cooking most of the time, they would really, really appreciate it. That will go a long way in reigniting this fire in your marriage.
It will. And then also another thing you can do that pertains to meals is Fix your spouse's lunch for them to take to work with them. That's another thing that you can do. And so while they're sitting there eating their lunch, they're going to be thinking about you. Wow, my spouse took the time to prepare lunch for me today. You know, do some things different that you normally would not do. It's not the big things, really simple things mean a lot to your spouse if you take the time to do those different things.
Another thing is, guys, we need to be spontaneous. Be spontaneous. Suggest an unusual date night or date day during an unexpected time. Plan to do something that you don't normally do. Do something out of the norm. Go to a place that you've never gone before. Go to a new restaurant you've never tried before. Go to a movie theater. Check out the latest movie. Go to a comedy club. Or even if you don't want to do anything extravagant like that, go to the park. Take a blanket, make some sandwiches in a basket, and just go there and sit down and relax and enjoy each other's time. Do something different that's not so predictable when it comes to the activities that you and your spouse are having together. So make sure you do something spontaneous.
And the point is to just do something together. Do something different. That's the point. Do something different. Just you and your spouse. That's the biggest thing.
Because you're still wanting to show and share that love that you once showed in the beginning of your relationship.
And another thing in marriage, in order for the spark to be revived and rejuvenated, you have to get rid of old baggage and old issues. You have to forgive each other.
True. That's very true when it comes to forgiveness, and something that we need to do a lot more of in our marriages and in our own personal lives. When two people marry, it is normal that challenges and difficulties will arise in your marriage. No other way around it. They're going to come. So be honest and merciful with each other. That's the key. Be merciful with each other. One of the biggest ways that you can destroy a marriage is to be a person that is unable to forgive. So you have to be able to forgive. Don't hold on to an old grudge. Don't hold on to grudges at all. It's only going to further damage your marriage. It's going to damage you as an individual, and it's going to damage your marriage and anything else that you touch. So make sure that you're being forgiving when it comes to this, not holding on to past memories or past arguments or past disputes. So make sure that we don't hold on to those grudges.
And like Adrian just said, that's so important that you don't hold on, that you're able to forgive, because there is nothing worse than being in a marriage with someone that's constantly bringing up things over and over and over and over. That is one of the quickest ways to destroy your marriage, because how long will a person be able to withstand that? How long do they want to listen to the same things over and over? Why is it, especially for those of us that are Christians, Jesus died for our sins. He forgave us. So he's forgiven us for whatever it is that you may have done. But now you have a spouse that's constantly bringing these things up, and they're holding on to unforgiveness. Now, I will say this: when trust has been broken, it has to be rebuilt.
Right.
You can't just assume that you have broken trust in your marriage, that a situation happens today and then tomorrow they need to get over it. That's not what we're saying at all. But what we are saying is you have to go through that process of forgiveness, because it causes damage to you personally, and it causes damage to your marriage. So make sure that you're able to walk these things out and you're not just holding on to unforgiveness.
Absolutely. Forgive. Another step is we have to learn how to be thankful. Be thankful for what it is that we have in our spouse. Be thankful for our marriage. Every day we have to find something to be thankful for. Thankful, and thank your spouse. Something to thank your spouse for. Remember, you are on the same team. Husbands and wives, we're on the same team. When you are conscientious of the good in your spouse, then you will have a successful team. So it's something that don't just happen out of thin air. You have to be consciously thinking about it, knowing what good that it is in your spouse. Not always thinking of yourself, but thinking about the good things that are in your spouse. We have to show appreciation for what your spouse does. Often further encourages that same good behavior. If you're giving good behavior, you're going to reciprocate good behavior. So continue to show the appreciation to your spouse, and your spouse will show you the same appreciation.
Yeah, and you want to point out those things that your spouse is doing good. That's the biggest thing, is be thankful. You know, a lot of times, you know, we get in the slumps and we want to start complaining about what's wrong with our marriage, what's wrong with our spouse, what they don't do. That kills your marriage. You want to focus on the things that your spouse does do, the good things that they do. If your spouse is the only thing you can get out of your husband is taking out the trash, you need to wear that out. Right. Honey, you are the best trash taker outer ever. Yeah. Whatever it is, you need to wear that thing out. Right. If it's something good that they're doing, because there is something good that everybody's spouse is doing. You know, you want to focus on that good thing and build from that good thing, because the more you feed that and speak positivity into that, then the behavior will start to flow into other things. But if you're a person that's constantly complaining all the time about what's wrong, that wears your spouse out. It breaks their spirit. It wears them down. And so now the behavior that you're trying to get out of them is not going to happen because you've worn them out. You've worn them down with your negativity. So be thankful. Be thankful for your spouse. You know, my husband and I laugh and we tell other couples, because sometimes we get so busy complaining, and that spouse, a person that, you know, you're taking for granted, you know, it's like some old clothes somebody might have. They might just be some old clothes to you and not mean that much. But to somebody else, they have a brand new outfit. And so you have to look at it like that with your spouse as well, you know, where, okay, I'm used to them. You're taking them for granted, where, you know, it could be like $1 million to somebody else. So don't take each other for granted. Be thankful for the spouse that you have and make the best out of the marriage that you have.
Let them know that you appreciate them. Let them know often that you do appreciate them and whatever it is that they're doing. Be thankful. Be thankful.
Definitely.
Also, we have to learn how to, or if we have learned to, or we need to go back to active listening. Yes. We need to learn how to actively listen. How easy is it for you to tune your spouse out? Think about that. How easy is it for you to tune out your spouse? Do you really listen to what your spouse has to say, both verbally and non-verbally? Oftentimes we can say a lot of things without opening our mouth. So let's be careful of how what we say, both verbally and non-verbally. Taking time to truly listen to one another is vital to the health of your marriage.
That's important. What you're thinking about. What is my spouse thinking about? What's going on with my spouse? Do you really take the time to sit down to see what is really going on with my spouse? How does my spouse feel today? Do you genuinely ask those questions to your spouse at the end of the day? How was your day? And really mean that, you know, and if they have something going on, do you actually sit there and listen to what it is that they're talking about, even if it's not something that you particularly care about? What you have to realize in marriage is it's not about you. You know, it's about each one of you, the husband and the wife, trying to figure out what it is that you can do to make your spouse's life better. Because if you have two spouses doing that, you're going to have a beautiful marriage. So you want to genuinely listen and be concerned about what's going on with your spouse, because that's one of the biggest things that revives and rejuvenates a marriage is your communication with each other. And it does not matter what you're communicating with. It's about the simple fact that I have a spouse that listens to me. Even if what I'm talking about is, you know, me personally, you know, I'm talking about the boutique, or I'm talking about this, I'm talking about some shoes,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that my husband takes the time to listen to that means a lot.
All right. What you have to understand what it is that's on your wife's heart. What is it that's on your husband's heart? Do you sincerely know? Like she was just saying, make sure that we take the time to listen. Another step is look into each other's eyes. Look into each other's eyes when you're speaking. Look into each other's eyes when you're speaking to one another. This is about giving your attention when it is that you do communicate. Whether you be talking about something simple and plain and ordinary, day-to-day information, or if it's a deep, serious conversation or deep, serious matter that you're having, make sure either way, make sure that you look into each other's eyes and develop the great communication skill that you need to have and become an active listener. You have to get to the place to where you develop listening skills. They don't just happen overnight. You have to develop them. If you hope to have a happy and fulfilling and vibrant marriage, learn to develop your listening skills. One of the ways you can practice is just by listening to your music or to your radio and actively listen and really understand, okay, what are they saying? What are they really saying? And really pay attention. If you do that and start training your ears and training your mind to do these things, then actively listening to your spouse will not be so hard.
That's good. That is good. And then you have to learn to respect each other. This is a big one. You have to learn to respect each other. That's so important. Both men and women desire to be respected and to have their feelings validated. That's what respect is to have your feelings validated a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Both men and women desire to be respected. Mm-hmm. We want to have our feelings validated, both men and women, both the husband and the wife. Does your behavior in your marriage warrant respect? Does your behavior warrant respect?
That's good. And let's stay right there for a minute. He said, does your behavior warrant respect? What type of person are you? Or are you a person that communicates with your spouse and you're yelling and you're screaming and, you have, attitudes and, you're always walking on eggshells? Does your behavior warrant respect? That's one thing.
Do you live your life with integrity?
That's good. That's a good one.
In other words, if you want respect, then you have to act respectable. Mm-hmm. No one is going to give you respect. Respect is earned. You have to earn the respect. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, most often than not, you earn the respect by your actions, by the things that it is that you do and the way you carry yourself and what it is that you say. There will also be times when you feel like your spouse does not deserve your respect. In fact, you might be at that place right now. Talk to your spouse with love. Talk to them with love about what it is that you observe in them and what you are feeling with regards to their behavior. In other words, don't allow a bad behavior from one spouse reciprocate bad behavior. Mm-hmm. Someone has to be the bigger person and earn and get the respect on the table, and so that we both can be respectful to one another.
Yeah, if you are observing something going on with your spouse that you don't think where, they're disrespecting you. If you have a spouse and, every time you're with your husband or your wife and they're always looking at the opposite sex, okay, that is something that it may make you feel disrespected. So you can't get all belligerent. You need to have a conversation with your spouse about this. Share your feelings about how their behavior makes you feel. The way that you communicate is what gives you the respect. If you're not communicating properly, you're not going to get the respect that you want. Neither are you going to get the response that you want either. So that's very important as well.
Absolutely. And if the respect has been broken, work together to restore mutual respect for one another. Let's work together so that we can restore that. Even if you have to seek outside help, let's make sure we get back to the place where we can restore the mutual respect that you used to have for one another.
And that's so true, because the foundation of your marriage cannot be built on a shaky foundation.
Right.
You have to have respect. You have to have trust for one another in order to have the foundation of the marriage that you need. You can't revive a marriage if you don't respect each other. That is very key. And another thing in rejuvenating and reviving your marriage, break your normal routine. Break your normal routine. It's so easy to get into a routine when you've been with someone for a while. Right. It's very easy to get into a routine. You're like, I know them. I know what they're going to do. I know what they're going to eat for breakfast. Right. You know, I've heard spouses say they can tell you from sun up to sunset exactly what their spouse is going to do. The time they're going to leave out the door, the time they're going to pull into the driveway, because they have the exact same routine. You want to break your routine in your marriage. That gets very boring after a while, especially some things, routine is good, but there are some things in your marriage you want to be spontaneous about. Your life together can become predictable and very boring if you're doing the same things over and over. So if you want to put some excitement back into your relationship, do some new things with each other. Typically, like for a lot of couples, Saturdays, they do chores. If they're off on Saturdays, they do chores on Saturday. Everyone, the husband, the wife, the children, the dog, everyone knows every Saturday we do chores. Break the routine. If it's summertime, we're not doing chores today. How about we just get in the car and ride to the ocean, ride to the beach, or, you know, go to the park, do something different, you know. Do something out of the norm. Break that normal, boring routine that you typically have. Try something new with each other, because it is so easy for us to get comfortable and have the same routine going on and on and on in our marriage, and that gets boring very quickly. Spice up your marriage. Just change it up a little bit. Be spontaneous at times.
That's exactly right. Just change it up. Change is good. Most people do not like change, but change is inevitable. We have to change in our marriages, because as you go through your marriage, the longer that you're together, you're going to change. Your physicality is going to change. Your bodies are going to change. The way you look is going to change. You may change jobs from time to time. Your career may change. Change is inevitable. So just always bring about change within your marriage as well, and break up the routine.
Don't change jobs too much. Now you need stability. Stay somewhere, please, with that. Another thing in marriage, we were talking about the chores. Don't get bogged down with chores. Yes, every household has chores. You have to do chores. It's something you have to deal with. But don't allow chores to be the focal point of your life. Don't allow chores to be the focal point of every week. That can quickly kill the romance. But you can spice up chores. So instead of arguing about who's going to cook and who's going to do the laundry and all of these things, and who did the dishes last night and who didn't do the dishes, let us suggest to you, how about you cook together? Do your laundry together. Make your bed together. You know, my husband and I, we make the bed together a lot of times, you know, and so, you know, we're joking and laughing or whatever as we're making the bed. We fold laundry together. There's a lot of chores that we do together. Right. And the key word in that is together. Regardless of what it is that you're doing, enjoy that time with your spouse. Any time spent with your spouse is good time. So make the most of that time that you're together. Do things together. Chores can be fun if you're doing them together.
Absolutely.
And especially if you don't have any kids around the house, you can have a lot of fun doing chores.
That's a very good point.
And another thing, get rid of distractions. We have so many distractions. In order to rekindle the fire in your marriage, put down the cell phone, turn the television off, turn the computer off, and spend some time talking with your spouse, looking at your spouse. Have a romantic dinner together. play a game together, a card game, a board game. Do something other than the norm of sitting and looking at your cell phone or looking at the computer or talking about work, or for those that are in ministry like we are. We find it easy and we have to shut it down at times, because a lot of times, you know, when you're in ministry and leaders, you can just start having conversations, and all of your conversations can be about ministry all the time. You have to learn to have balance and shut those things down so that you have a balance in your marriage and focus on each other.
Make sure also in distractions, we list a lot of distractions, from computers to tablets to cell phones. Cell phones are biggie nowadays, where everybody has a cell phone. But even with the distractions, let's make sure that people don't become our distraction.
Exactly, that's good.
Let's make sure that people don't become our distraction, because sometimes we'll feel like we have to always be on the phone with someone. We have to always be in someone's space discussing work, discussing church, discussing the next planning meeting or planning event, and you always have people in your face. At some point, you got to get to the place and say, okay, at this point, we're carving out this time, no distractions, no television, no people, no phone calls, unnecessary phone calls, anything like that. We're going to set this time aside for our marriage and not have any distractions.
And the point about rekindling your marriage is you got to spend time with each other, just you and your spouse. You can't rekindle something and revive and rejuvenate something if you're not giving each other undivided attention. That's the key. You have to remove all distractions, whatever they are. And another thing with that is, if you are not used to just spending one-on-one time with your spouse, if you are a couple that's always used to the children being there or something going on, or you're used to date nights with other couples, there's nothing wrong with that. All of that is great. That is really, those are great things to do. But if you're used to that consistently and you never spend time with your spouse alone, it'll be uncomfortable at first when you get together, because now, in actuality, you really don't have conversations together outside of other people, outside of outside forces going on. And so now you don't know what to talk about. So now it's going to be an uncomfortable situation. But what you want to do is practice. Practice makes perfect, you know, as they say. So practice, you know, make it a habit. The longer, the more you spend time with your spouse, just you and your spouse, it will become second nature to you. And you'll learn to develop those communication skills and talk about you and your spouse and not other things. And not negative things or deep, heavy things all the time. Just general conversations you want to have with each other.
Definitely make sure you go back. And again, as I say it all the time, go back to where you were when you first met. When you first met, you could not keep your hand off the phone. You couldn't keep your conversation. You wanted to spend every waking moment with him or her. You wanted to, you would find, you make up things to talk about. It didn't even make sense. You just say anything, whatever, because you want to spend time with that person. Make sure you go back to that. Let's not disconnect from that once we're married. Let's do it even the more.
And you just said connect. And so that's the other thing we want to go on to rekindle your fire. You have to stay connected. And in order to stay connected, that requires work. It just does not happen.
All right. You have to stay connected. Connecting with your spouse again will undoubtedly bring the spark back to your relationship. Connecting with your marriage with your spouse again will undoubtedly bring the spark back to your relationship. Some of us think that it takes a lot of effort, but once you decide that this is what you're going to do, you would not have gotten past dating. So you got to understand that you have to make sure that you stay connected, even going back to the dating phase.
Yeah, and like you said, it just, some of you think that this takes a lot of effort. Yes, it takes work, but you have to think about the fact that this is what you did before when you met each other. You put the work in. You put forth effort when you met each other originally. Because had you not put forth any effort from the beginning, your relationship, you wouldn't be into a marriage now, because you would have never got past dating because you didn't put forth any effort. So go back to the same effort that you put forth in your marriage from the beginning. And not only that, really, if you've lost a spark in your marriage, you may have to put forth more work at this point to rebuild that, to rekindle that. The point is, don't just let your marriage die.
Absolutely correct. We got to make decisions. It goes back to making the decision. When you first met her or you first met him, you made a decision that, hey, I want to get to know this person a little bit more. I want to get to know this person. You have to do that in your marriage. Again, as we said earlier, change is inevitable. You're going to change as you go through. So make sure that you stay connected so that you can see the change in your spouse, so that you won't look up one day and be like, oh, I didn't know you did that. So make sure that you stay connected. If you stay connected, then you will not have this break in your relationship.
And even if, like we're talking today with couples who have, most likely gotten to a place where the marriage has died out and is stagnant, if that is you, now you have to start back from ground zero. And because if you disconnected with your spouse, if you've been kind of doing your thing and they're doing their thing, and you kind of come together every now and then and, make love or have sex or whatever, and eat dinner together every now and then, you really don't know each other. And so in order to rekindle that fire and revive your marriage, you've got to relearn that person all over again. And so now you've got to go back to the dating process. You have to go all the way back to the dating process from the beginning. Ask those questions again. The questions you asked when you first met each other. Because if your marriage has grown apart over the years, I promise you your spouse has changed over the years and you've missed some things. And there are some things that have taken place with them that you've missed that you're not aware of because you've been disconnected. So go back to the dating phase and start all over again. That's important. And so you knew how to connect earlier in your relationship, and the memory of what you did before, those things are still there. You haven't forgotten about what to do. So again, like Adrian mentioned earlier, it's decision time. It's time to put forth the effort at this point. And this involves talking frequently. Frequent communication is necessary. The way to develop closeness in your marriage is to communicate. The way to sustain the communication in your marriage and to stay connected is to communicate. You can't sustain a healthy marriage if you're not talking with each other.
That's right. Absolutely.
You can't be ships passing in the night and expect to have a healthy marriage. It's not going to happen. Conversation produces intimacy.
Absolutely.
When you sit down with your spouse and you look them in the eyes and you really start having a serious conversation with them, that produces intimacy. Just me now sitting here looking into my husband's eyes, there's a connection there that I feel. There's a connection with that. That's what you want to do with your spouse. Look them in the eyes. Talk to them, conversate with them, and don't just talk about, again, outside stuff. Talk about you guys. What is it that you like? What's your vision for, your marriage? What's your vision for 2019? We're nearing the end of 2018. Sit down with your spouse and discuss, what's our vision for next year? You have to have a vision for your marriage. People perish because they don't have a vision. Your marriage will perish. Your marriage will die without a vision. What is your vision for your marriage? You see people all the time, they do these vision boards. You hear folks all the time, they have vision parties and, all of these things. Have a vision party for your marriage. What's the vision for your marriage? Spend some time with that. That's very important.
Also, you might think that losing the spark is a typical part of a marriage, but it does not have to be. It is not as hard as you think it is to rekindle the fire in your marriage and to sustain the fire. It simply requires you being willing to consistently put in the work. And again, we have to put in the work. It's not just going to happen overnight. You have to really put in the work and stay connected.
And another thing with rekindling the fire in your marriage is you have to be attractive to each other, to your husband or your wife, on the outside physically and on the inside. Inside and outside, you have to be attracted to your spouse. And on the outside, the physical part of that is don't stop doing what you did before. When you first met your spouse, or when you were going out on dates, you weren't going on dates looking any type of way. You took time to make sure you had on your best outfit, your hair was done, you went to the barber, you've had your hair cut. You were concerned about the way that you look. You have to continue that in marriage. Don't say, I'm married now, so he or she can take me as I am. No, you shouldn't have that type attitude. Whatever you did to get that person is what you need to do to maintain your marriage and have that spark and that intimacy there. So take care of your physical self. Exercise. You know, I joke all the time about exercising, but I promise you, if I see too many pounds, I'm going to start doing something about it, because it's important not just to my husband, but it's important to me. My health, the way that I look, is important to me as well. That's an easy way to kill a marriage, when you start just not really caring about what you look like. You know, a lot of times I tell women, yes, you don't want to go to bed with that bonnet on. When I tell you, my husband hates that bonnet. That bonnet tears his last nerves up. But there's times where I take my bonnet off because I know he does not want to sit and look at this bonnet all the time, or this scarf on my head. And so that's what compromising in marriage is. But sometimes we just get so comfortable with each other that, you know, it's like we're not putting forth any effort. The other thing with being attractive, be attractive on the inside. Okay. That is so important. Don't be a complainer and a person that's constantly negative all the time. There is nothing attractive about that at all. You know, yes, there are issues that arise. Be one that deals with issues and let the issue go. Don't constantly have a negative tone. No one wants to come home to someone who's always negative. Something is always wrong. There's nothing ever positive going on. You are one that sees what's wrong before you see what's right. Don't let that be you. So make sure your insides are attractive as well. So that way you're not killing the romance in your marriage. Because if your spouse comes home, and if you're a man and, you know, the husband, you're always sitting in front of the television with your feet kicked up and your t-shirt on and your socks on the floor, and, you know, your wife is coming home to cook dinner and dishes are still in the sink, there's nothing attractive about that at all. Or same with the ladies. If your husband comes home and you're sitting there, and, you know, sometimes if you're one that cooks, there's nothing to eat, and the bonnet is on and all of this stuff, and he walks in the door and you're like, take the trash out. You haven't said hello, how are you doing? How was your day? You know, honey, you know, give your husband or your wife a kiss. That's negative. That's not attractive at all. So you want to be attractive on the inside and the outside.
And also make sure that you take care of yourself on the inside. You can't take care of your spouse's inside or outside. You have to take responsibility, take ownership of you, and take care of your inside and your outside. Make sure that you're doing these things on your own first.
And another way to take care of your insides is to be connected with God. You got to pray. You have to study the Word of God. You have to spend time with God so that you're building your inner self, that you're building your spirit man. So when you're doing this now, it's easy for you to love your spouse. It's easy for you not to be negative, because you can't stay in the Word of God and pray constantly and have a negative mindset. The Word of God and prayer changes your mindset. So if you're doing these things individually and with your spouse, it pushes that out of your marriage. It pushes the negativity out of your marriage. So when a situation arises that's a trial for your marriage, you're able to deal with whatever that is and move on. You don't stay there at that place.
Absolutely.
And so couples, you want to remember this. Jesus and his presence in your marriage is what flames your marriage. Jesus in your marriage is the oxygen on your marriage. You know, it takes oxygen for a fire to burn. Jesus is the oxygen in your marriage. So he is what flames that. And so if you don't have him in your relationship, we solicit you today to build a relationship with God.
Absolutely.
You know, seek out a couple who has a relationship with God, a strong relationship, a strong biblical marriage that you can really learn from and build from so that you can develop that, because it's very, very much needed in your marriage.
Seek knowledge, gain the wisdom that you need to gain. Trust Christ. Bring him into your marriage. So many times we act like we want to have him in our marriage, but we don't want to pray with him. And we certainly don't want to have him in our bedroom. So let's change our concept. Let's stop looking at the way the world portrays romance and the way the world portrays relationships and how we should be and how we ought to be. Let's go back to the Word of God. Allow the Word of God to strengthen you as individuals. Allow the Word of God to strengthen you in your marriage and as a couple.
Definitely. And we hope today that we've given you some tips for your marriage. If your marriage is at a place of stagnation where you just feel like, you know, this is the way it is and it's not going to change, it can change. You can revive your marriage. Your marriage can most definitely be restored and rejuvenated if you're willing to put the work into it. So we hope these tips will help you to begin there. It's not all the things that you can do. We just wanted to share some things with you that you can do to kind of kickstart your marriage again. And so do those things and don't start them and then stop. Be consistent. Everything that you do, you have to be consistent in it. Nothing will work if you're not consistent. And with your marriage, you have to be consistent 24/7. So please do that.
Very good. Again, we do take this opportunity to thank you so much for tuning in with us for another episode of Marriages of the Kingdom with Adrian and Nicole. We also, again, invite you to connect with us via our website. That's marriagesofthekingdom.com. Again, that's marriagesofthekingdom.com. Or you can connect with us via our email address. That is info@marriagesofthekingdom.com. Again, that's info@marriagesofthekingdom.com. Until next time, please be intentional about your marriage.